Roll call.
Member Beard,
Present.
Member Grenier,
Present.
Member Hamburg,
Present.
Member Jensen,
Here.
Member Martino,
Here.
Member Schellenberger, absent.
I think she's on Zoom.
Member Schellenberger, are you present? Absent.
I'm sorry, can you call my name? I'm actually going to be there in person in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Should we go on with the pledge, or? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make that motion. I'll second that.
Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Passes 5-0, 6-0.
Public comments.
Approval of the minutes.
Oh, we just did.
Oh, I thought you did the agenda.
Correct. That
Oh.
was the agenda. So next one is number 2.
Approval.
The minutes.
Right. I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 6. Cheryl, did you have a vote?
I,
Passes 6-0. Item number 3.
Due to the resignation of Barry Prescott, the chairman of the committee, we need to select a new chair.
I make a motion. I'd like to nominate Cheryl.
Do we need a second on that? Is that what we do?
You can second on that, and we can check with Cheryl if she would be willing to accept that position.
Well, I'll second that.
Actually, if we could, before you take the final motion, open it up to public comment. We do have at least one individual with us today.
That's what I
Is there
thought
any
we
public
had.
comment?
Okay,
No public comment. So did we have a second?
can we nominate someone else?
Yeah.
Well, if we could first ask Cheryl if she would be willing to, and then ask you.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, if we do, is it closed after, my point was, I'm sorry, was it closed after this?
Oh. So there was a first and a second. Cheryl, would you be willing to accept that position?
sure.
Okay, so now we would need to take a roll call, and then if that doesn't pass, then you would have another opportunity to nominate somebody else. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and go member by member. Tracy Beard,
No.
Alexandre Grenier,
Aye. Yes.
Max Henberg,
Aye.
Kim Jensen,
No.
John Martino,
Aye.
Cheryl Schellenberger.
Here,
No. Are you voting yes or no for your appointment as the chair?
yes.
Okay, passes 4 yes, 2 no. Cheryl will be nominated as the committee chair. But vice chair is continuing.
And I'll
to be
stay,
the chair. It's
I'll
not
keep
here.
going as Cheryl. Let's see, receive marketing update and current scope of work from marketing consultant Cogs and Marvel.
Okay, so this is a presentation from the Cox and Marvel team. They're here today with us on Zoom, and I'll let their team take over.
Thank you so much. I'm Madhur from Cox and Marvel. I'm the account director. Jacob, do you have Scott with you over there?
Scott is actually going to be there in person in like 2 minutes. He's just in the car. But he will be there super soon. Give me just 1 second. Let me see and check in with him.
Do we have this presentation in here that he's giving?
No.
Okay, so I don't need to look for it then.
Will we have it afterwards?
We can definitely, if there's a
Okay.
presentation from them, we can provide that too.
Okay.
Can we ask how long this is?
The presentation?
Yeah, how long is that presentation?
When the team is available, the vice chair can inquire how long the presentation will be.
I'll do that when the team is
Well, I
here.
just think that it's really long. I'd like to have some paperwork on this, because I want to follow along.
Well, it'll be up there as a,
Okay.
as
All right.
should we move on to the next bit, or should we just wait?
Well, we could potentially, with approval of the committee, move items and move to item number 4 first, and then come back to this item. Sorry,
Move to
item number
5
Move to
rather than
5.
4. You know,
Let's do that.
they should be here in a few minutes. I think we have a lot
Yeah.
to go on 5. Let's just give them a few more minutes to get here.
Yeah, he's at Mission Drive in Alamo Pintado, so he should be there super soon.
Yeah, that could be a long way from there at this time of day.
Madhur and team, do you have a presentation that you will be following? Or is this verbal?
Sorry, unfortunately I do not. I think Scott is carrying it with him. But thank you for your patience. I'm sure he'll get there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's see.
So wait.
Yeah, we're gonna wait here. I was just seeing if we could go to 6.
It'd be kind of hard to do 6 when they're,
Yeah. Got 5. Can we go to 7? Can we run that comments now, or should we wait, or probably wait till after the presentations, because there may develop comments during that period. So, Cheryl should be here in a minute. We'll rock. Well, I guess we could go on to 5. What are we gonna do, make a motion?
Yes, you would make a motion to move the agenda items, to switch number 5 and 4.
Can we start that, and then when he gets here, continue with his, or do we gotta finish 5? What would be the protocol?
I would prefer that we just go through the item, so that we can
Okay.
take public comment once and.
Very good. We can't get any comment from the public to kill time?
No.
All right. Anybody up there on the public like to speak?
You can't read your handwriting.
It hasn't changed since, didn't lose anything in the copy.
No, it didn't.
Didn't gain anything either, yeah.
No.
You could, while you wait, just discuss in general, current contract scope, if you have any general comments on that before the team starts presentation.
Contact scope, current scope of work from market consultant. Hello,
Sorry.
welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl.
There's somebody behind you, so
Yeah, I know.
don't feel, you don't feel like you're the
Where he
only.
was at, so like we're probably right behind each other.
And I can hand it over to Cheryl now, correct? Bingo.
Are you placing in the position?
He can kill dead air.
We've been waiting to get ready.
Well, glad to have you back, Cheryl.
Yeah,
And,
thank
You
you.
know, that's
Yes.
great, we can
Yeah.
keep you on board, that's good.
Perfect,
I
yes,
think,
thank you, I appreciate
Your
that.
valuable insight.
Now, you live here, right?
I live in San Diego.
You're right.
Yeah,
Oh, really, you're not
But you work
solving
in
that?
Vancouver.
I work in Ventura, yeah.
You commute daily?
3 days a week,
Oh, that's gotta be a gruesome commute.
yeah, yeah, so.
Gruesome at days. Especially carpentry, you got all that stuff messed up
You know, I have
down
a question, and I think we can discuss this. We still have a vacant seat on the board, don't we?
We do have a vacancy on the board.
We do?
And that's an appointment by a council member.
Oh, that'll be appointed by the council member.
Okay, so while we're killing time, I will give you a little bit of information on that. Robert Clark, Councilman Clark and I have been talking. We've gone through a couple of different options, and the people that weren't available didn't want to be on the TAC, you know, wouldn't want to associate with anything Kim was associated with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's a possibility we'll get Mr. Cecchini, Chekos.
David,
Yeah,
David Cecchini?
yeah. He has been asked, and we'll find out about that here in the next couple of days. But it is up to Robert right now. We had talked to Mike Llewellyn, and he said he didn't have the time. The manager of his wine tasting, Andy, he didn't think he would be appropriate. So we've gone through several different options, and hopefully we'll get David in here.
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, you bet.
I have a question while we wait. So the Cogs and Marvel, I kind of read about in the notes. What's the connection with IDK and Cogs and Marvel?
So Scott used to be the owner of IPK. He's now an employee of Crux and Marvel. So essentially with this contract that's going through end of July, the contract is now with Crux and Marvel, and
Okay.
Scott is one of the people we have on the team.
Okay.
That's why you see a few folks with us here today from Crux and Marvel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You all have that.
Yeah.
We're glad you asked.
Uh,
I think I should have known. I could have done that.
And then with this contract, through July, will they be reporting at this meeting every month, or?
That was the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Did Scott fly in?
He did fly, yes. And he just turned on to Alisal, so he'll be there in like 2 minutes. Sorry about this.
Any minute.
time frame though? So is it 20 minutes or 15 or is it a full hour or something?
I don't have any information.
We'll make it
The
as
link
quick
is
as we can.
presentation. I
I
am.
just want to make note of this is the second time that there's been a proposal brought before us. No paperwork whatsoever prior to having something. And it's really hard to follow if we don't have something. And I think we've stressed that it's real important to have those things. And why can't we have that? And this is the second time now that's happened. I mean, it's not like they don't know when our meeting is gonna come, because we know it's Thursday. It was at 3:30. Why can't we have paperwork before that so we can at least look at this stuff? And then we're supposed to make a recommendation to the council? With that, that's like hair on
So
fire.
just to clarify the scope of item 4, which we have Scott walking in right now, which is receive marketing update on current scope of work from the marketing consultant Cox and Marvel. That's just an ongoing update of what they're currently working on. So it's not the recommendations for the future, it's a report on the ongoing current work.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, sir. Do you mind if I stand here, or is there a better, more appropriate place?
Right there.
Is that mic on?
All right.
Yep.
So, thank you for having me. It's nice to see everybody in person today. I decided it was really important to be here to see everyone's smiling face, since we normally only get a chance to see you guys remotely. So, I've got our, I've got my team here. So just as a reminder for everybody out there in the world, I'll let my team just quickly introduce themselves. We can start with Madhur.
Hi everyone, I'm Madhur, account director at Cox and Marvel.
Great, and Jacob, if you're on.
Hi there, I am Jacob. I am a producer at Cox and Marvel, specifically focusing on any events that are happening in Solvang.
Perfect, and Jamie, if you're on, or Leanna.
Hi, Jamie and Leanna. We're part of the Solvang social media team.
Perfection, and did I miss anybody from my team? I can't see the Zoom, unfortunately. Okay, great. So I know when we talked last time, we normally would give you guys a whole update of tons of data and data points comparing our digital marketing efforts and our social marketing efforts. When I spoke with the city manager, she said that she would prefer that we send those to you via email and allow you to review those on your own rather than presenting them. So we will circulate that detailed report for January after this meeting, but for now, what I'll have our Jamie do is present a high level of our year over year. So if we just look at January 21 to January 2022, just look at year over year metrics for social. And then, Anna, are you on as well? Anna tentatively accepted, so she may not be here.
I'm here.
Oh, cool. Sorry, Anna. Can you introduce yourself as well?
Everybody knows me. It's Glenn Marketing.
Cool. All right. So, Leanna, do you want to go ahead and take it away with just the very high level, very brief one slide update for 2021 to 22 updates on social?
Jamie, why don't you go ahead and do that for us? Yeah, you got it. Okay, so just a quick overview, January 2022 versus 2021. This year, our followers ended the month at 27,601 followers. Last year, January ended at 16,500 followers. So this month, or from year to year, we gained over 11,000 followers, which was an extra almost 1,000 from the previous year, which is awesome. So our growth rate is at 67%. On Facebook, we gained over 1,000 followers from year to year, January 2022, January 21. And that annual percent growth rate is 3.7%. And then we wanted to mention January 2022-21 reach. On both Facebook and Instagram, we were pretty steadily increased in reach throughout the entire month, with the exception of a couple of peaks from 21. But overall, our reach was increased by about 11.5% this year. Our top performing content is still, of course, windmills are very big, exterior shots, bakery shots, and then of course we're doing call to actions where we're trying to get our audience engaged in telling us stories about their visits, asking when they're coming, and that's helping our engagement. I think that's all that I have.
Yep. Yeah, so specifically for January of this year, something we wanted to share with you is obviously with the resurgence of Omicron, trying to be both respectful to the town, but also to sort of stand back a little bit and see how things went. We weren't aggressively pushing the visit. So, but we also weren't going back to the sort of the beginning of the pandemic where we were calling it cautious travelers, where we're like, see yourself in solving when things get better. We didn't want to go quite that extreme. So the middle ground that we found here in January was really engaging our audience by getting them to tell us what they most like about solving. And so to that end, we did 3 specific calls to action. One was, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was a show me your best solving story. And so what we did is we encouraged people to show us photos from whenever. And it was really cool because we got a few photos from folks in the 70s and 80s when they came as kids, and then showed us photos more recently, and we had those side by side. So that was a really fun way to engage with our audience and continue to, obviously we've been focused on the awareness and consideration funnels, and so that conversation allows us to continue those funnels. The other 2 calls to action that we did were like a Flashback Friday sort of thing, and then the third one was around show us your best windmill. So we did these 3 really specific calls to action in January that were getting people to continue the conversation about solving without necessarily encouraging them to travel if they didn't feel safe to do so, or if we didn't want it to backfire on the brand if somebody decided that it wasn't appropriate for us to be encouraging travel during the COVID surge. So we took a cautious approach there. So January has been good on social. On traditional media, we did 2 placements in January. One was AAA Magazine, the Westways co-op. Anna helped us write that. So this is a co-op between Visit SYV, the city of Buellton, and the city of Solvang. So each city or each entity pays $7,500 towards a $21,000 advertorial, 2-page advertorial spread. This is something that apparently has been done for a very long time. We didn't want to back away from it in 2020, so we participated in 2020 and then again participated for 2021. So what we did is we wrote basically a how to visit solving, a step-by-step guide for things to do and explore here that will be published in AAA Westways Magazine. And then also on the traditional media front, in order to encourage our high net worth Chinese visitors, we did a special in, Anna, forgive me, I cannot remember the name of the publication.
It's the Epic Times. This was a special, it was a New Year's, like a special segment, a special section that goes with the paper.
Yeah, so as you, I'm sure, are all aware, Lunar New Year was the first, and so obviously that's very important in a lot of cultures, Vietnamese, Chinese, Asian cultures throughout the world, and many Mandarin-speaking high net worth individuals are within 200 miles of Solvang, and so we can speak directly to them through this Mandarin language publication. It's relatively inexpensive for the reach, so we did do a special insertion in their Mandarin language Lunar New Year publication. So that came out a couple of days ago. And then, alongside our social and digital strategy of sort of keeping the conversations going without aggressively telling people come in the middle of a COVID surge, we, on the PR side, I'll let Anna talk about what we saw on the PR side the last 30 days. It was mostly, information about things the city was doing, including its decision to postpone reopening Copenhagen Drive. So Anna, I'll let you give us those 3 highlights.
And it's very simple, and I believe that Scott can copy and paste what I'm talking about into the report that we received after this. But yeah, basically, just like with the social, obviously we're seeing a slowdown with editorial visits right now. So we're kind of taking this time to breathe a little bit. I kind of expect that late February to May, we will start to be running people through very custom tailored editorial itineraries again, when people can actually visit in person. But we have a lot of people who are just not necessarily traveling right now, so they're not going to come up here. So much the same as we saw last year around this time, and after the initial shutdown, a lot of the chatter in news about solving really just returns to what's regional and local. And again, that's the Copenhagen closure or reopening, whichever way you want to look at it. It was definitely a hot subject for a while, so that was everywhere. And of course, when things go onto the TV news, that usually gets syndicated out to bigger platforms. It'll go into YouTube or MSN, things like that, Yahoo News. And then we also had the tree burn, which people were really excited about. So just the return of that, which was kind of like the crossover between the city initiative and the finale for Yule Fest. Those were really the two things that carried the most weight in January. Again, as to be expected because of the fact that there's not a ton of travel necessarily happening all around right now. But again, I think that's going to pick up once people are a little bit more comfortable with traveling in the next few months. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Perfect.
How was December's social media chatter and work for this year's Yule Fest?
Oh, December
In
was
general.
out of control. It was, Leanna and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the highest that we've ever seen, sort of by all metrics. Obviously, TOT was record-setting, or we're expecting TOT to be record-setting. We haven't actually seen the results, but seeing what has been published over since July, we've beat every record ever set in solving so for July, August, September, and October, which is all that's been published currently. But based on the informal surveys of hotels, they seem to be doing well. We saw a little over 11,000 visitors in the visitor center, which we don't have a lot of data from previous years, but that it feels like a good number through the visitor center. So we could prepare and include Yule Fest specific report. Actually, we did send that already, so I can make sure that gets shared with this group. Okay, so then along the lines of, things, obviously people are learning to live with the virus. 70% of Americans surveyed recently are saying that, that it's time to get back out there and live our lives. So with that, we have a couple of things in the pipeline for the next couple of weeks into the end of February. So, obviously we'll come back to report again on the past, but just so you have a heads up of what's coming. We have a couple of initiatives around Valentine's weekend. Our team at the Visitor Center, coming off of the success of doing AbleSkiever demonstrations and some of the other things with the Candlelight Tours, we're bringing back what we're calling a Sweetheart Tour on Valentine's weekend. So it's an opportunity for visitors to go and see the town after dark, learn a little bit of its history through the Visitor Center ambassador staff, and have a chance to sample some of the treats from those vendors that are open in the evening. We've seen a lot of interest in across all of our channels for that. The number one question that we get through info at Solving USA, through the Visitor Center, and on voicemail is like, what is there to do after I've seen all the wine and shopped for a day? What more can I do? So this is an opportunity for us to engage that audience and give them some storytelling that they can take back. And then also, as you know, from the second half of 2021, we produced a series of videos kind of reshaping the narrative of solving as a charming storybook location to visit. We held off on releasing those videos in January, again, because of the Omicron. We didn't want to get lost in the noise, but you'll start seeing those put out both in press and in social beginning that Valentine's Day weekend. So we have a Valentine's kind of specific girls trip. I think we've showed you guys all three of those videos, or all four of those videos. But the girls trip specific video will be the first, and then the How to AbleSkiever video will be next. And then the how to travel with your family will be our final video that we'll release in that first section of February, and then see how that does as we start to shift into conversion and advocacy. And then finally, so when we last talked in December, we talked about the idea of doing a Q1 event. You guys asked us to come back with some ideas of what that can look like. So we have we've landed on three sort of ideas. I'll do them in order of what I think will be the biggest draw for people and biggest bang for the buck. So the first proposed idea, and then again, this is up for discussion. This is not, we're not dictating this. This is up for discussion. Our first proposed idea is doing a Vikings Feast. So for those of you who were around during the taping of the TV show Dinner Impossible, thank you. For those of you who were around during the taping of Dinner Impossible, they did this really cool Viking feast where they brought, 8 courses out that were all made from different foods that were available in Viking times, and there was a lot of storytelling around that. So what we envision is doing a King's Table down Copenhagen or in the park, whichever is this body's dream, engaging with many of the restaurants and of course the tasting rooms. We would work in conjunction, hopefully with the chamber, to encourage, the participation from the local businesses and put together a Viking feast. We could give, kids tickets would come with a little Viking helmet that the kids can wear. We would do Viking food, hearty Danish food, and then during the weekend, that would be like the Crown on Saturday night. But during Saturday and Sunday, we could work with the various businesses through the chamber to promote opportunities and specials. Not discounts, but opportunities. So maybe this weekend you get to taste this wine that is a library wine that isn't introduced any other time, or there's a beer that's on tap at one of the beer tasting spots that otherwise wouldn't be available, or this special clog is available that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get any other time of the year. So that's our King's Table idea, and we think there's a lot of desire for that because this new audience segment is really interested in experiences that are Instagrammable and they're really interested in storytelling. So beyond this just being a meal, we're able to create a narrative around the meal that embraces everything that's happening within Solvang, not just the things that people traditionally know, the bakeries, the museums. We can sort of wrap our hands around everything. The second idea that our team came up with is we would call it wine and design. So this is more of a curated sort of itinerary. So essentially, over the course of the weekend, we could do curated tours focusing on design, wine, and retail products, and get museum talks. So think of this more as like an educational or learning experience, where the other one is more entertainment focused. So we could partner with the local hotels to create packages so that people could sort of choose your own adventure. I'm interested in the education track. In that case, they could come and get us, have a talk from the Overhoy Museum, or have a talk from the Hans Christian Andersen Museum, or maybe the Book Loft can bring an author in, and we can have an author signing or an author book talk. We could do another track that is focused on wine itineraries, but make it more intentional so it's not a drunk fest, which was the concerns that we had around the Wine and Stein event in the past. So that wine and design event, and then obviously working with the antique stores, with Copenhagen House, we can create a curated, design-focused itinerary as well. So that is idea number 2. And then finally, the kind of pie-in-the-sky fun one that we would love if you guys were on board with, but obviously takes a little bit more of a leap of faith, is we thought about how fun it would be to do a Lego hackathon. So one of the things that we looked at for Yule Fest was a lot of these Lego competitions. They're huge right now. They're huge on social. They're huge on YouTube. These guys create these unbelievable either miniature sculptures or big sculptures, but Lego is huge. I mean, even amongst my demographic, the 30 to 50-year-olds that are nostalgic and now have a little bit of pocket change, they can go out and spend $600 on the Millennium Falcon that they couldn't have when they were younger. But then, of course, the traditional Lego demographic still exists. So we thought about inviting a lot of those Lego folks, who many of which are in California, and we could do Lego displays around Copenhagen and encourage a competition and have folks build the best Lego. We could create a prize pool for them and invite folks to come to a Lego hackathon. So that was our third idea. So obviously these are all very high level. We want you to tell us which direction sort of speaks to you the best. And then from there, we'll come back to the next TOC meeting with renders and a detailed budget of exactly how we would execute against those one of those 3 buckets. I'm open to questions.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the Valentine's weekend program that you're considering?
Sure, yeah, so this is in its infancy. We've just started putting it together in the last 10 days. It's something that, again, our team, as we were reviewing Yule Fest, we really discovered that there was a lot of interest in the Candlelight Tours and people coming, you know, this is a fact. I'm not complaining about it, it's just stating a fact. There's very little to do in Solvang after dark, right? So folks who are here on extended stays, you know, they want to leave their hotel and go wander around, and there's literally very little to do in the evening. So the Candlelight Tours became a really, really popular spot for families to come, you know, at 7 o'clock in the evening and actually wander around and learn something about Solvang through our visitor center ambassadors. So, you know, understanding that there's a desire there, we were like, okay, what can we do that sort of speaks to that? So the thing that it was kind of a happy accident. Santa was unavailable one night, was feeling a little under the weather. And Sue called me and she says, you know, Santa can't be here. And a lot of people that at the end of the Candlelight Tours, they really want to meet Santa. She's like, but I don't want to disappoint them. Would you mind if I brought in an able skeever pan and I taught people how to make able skeevers instead? I was like, absolutely, that sounds like a great idea. People loved it. Like, it was just a very informal, I think we had 20 people in that tour, and they got to stand around, they got to learn how to make able skeever in the visitor center, and it was interactive, right? And again, audiences, and I know you guys know this, audiences crave storytelling and interaction, right? So this created this opportunity for people to sort of go beyond the static picture of them in the windmill. They got to become a part of the story, and we saw a lot of traction for that in tags and reposts and things. So for our Solvang Sweetheart Tour, we imagine using some of the same format as the Candlelight Tour. So it would be an evening tour guided by Dean Clickguard or by Sue or Kirsten, one of our visitor center staff, our visitor center ambassadors. It would feature, you know, a tasting of Ingeborg chocolate as it did in Christmas. It may feature fudge if they're open still in the evening. It may feature, you know, one of the bakeries that wants to open their doors to this crowd. It may be an able skeever, you know, sort of opportunity in the visitor center. But at its core, it's education. It's walking with somebody who's lived here their whole life and knows that this thatched roof means something, and the stork up on top of that building means something. And then the treats are just sort of a nice to have. So that's, at the moment, what our current plan is.
That's for Valentine's weekend.
For Valentine's weekend, it would be the Saturday and Sunday. So Valentine's Day is on Monday, I believe, this year, so it would be the 12th and 13th.
It's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So how can you plan that, like market it?
Oh, I mean, because that's the beauty of social and digital,
That's what
is that we can turn these types of campaigns on and and especially with our reach, I mean, we have a pretty substantial reach. We can turn these types of campaigns on, and again, there's a lot of folks who are already planning their stays and coming to us and saying, what is there to do? And we're not targeting hundreds of thousands of people, we're only targeting about 80 people over that weekend that we can just enhance their stay. And again, that then pushes them into that advocacy funnel, because now they're gonna go tell, those 80 people are gonna go tell all their friends about what an amazing experience they had.
What's the number of people we had over for the tours for the Candlelight Visual? And how much did we charge for those?
The Candlelight Tours, I'd have to get those exact numbers for you. I want to say we had 2 tours per weekend times 4 weekends, so I'm looking at Sue. Do you have those numbers off the top of your head?
26 people per tour, and we charged $25 a tour.
And how many tours did we had 2 per weekend, if I remember right?
Yeah.
So the city earned, not a lot, let's see, it was 26 people, you said?
Yes.
So the city earned about $2,500 from that.
And the tickets for the Sweetheart Tours are live. They're already up live.
Yeah, even without, and again, that speaks to the audiences, even without any information, we say Solvang Sweetheart Tour, are you interested? Click here, and you know, we put them live even though we weren't fully fleshed with what we wanted to do yet. We just threw the ticket link up. We did not advertise it. We just put the ticket link up on the Solving Eventbrite page. And I think we've sold like a half dozen or a dozen tickets. So it's, I mean, people, again, they're hungry for something to do. So we just create the experience back into it. Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the Lego Hackathon event, because you're talking about marketing the event to Lego fans around the state. I was wondering how you will reach out to those fans. What are some of the strategies you guys have developed for doing that?
Yeah, so the hack, I mean, again, these three ideas are very high level, just, and we want direction from you on which route makes the most sense. Within the Lego community, it's something that we've been working on because we went down that path for Christmas. It was something that we wanted to do. So we have a lot of these connections already. We would do, again, with paid and digital and social advertising is the primary route that we would try and reach those attendees that are already interested in that. But we can also look at, and have Leanna and Jamie look at what social hashtags are trending for those audiences and capture those folks as well.
And Lego, they don't have a problem with this kind of stuff.
No, there's a whole competition series, and so we can lean into that.
Sanctioned by Lego.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Scott, how much time would you need?
For which of these three?
Putting this together.
About 45.
About the Lego one.
About 45 days.
Okay.
Yeah, about 45 days for any of the three.
Okay.
So was this the budget that we had for the Q1 for $79,000 that we had put aside?
69, yes.
69, okay. And do you have a layout on each one, how much it's gonna cost on the feast right now?
No, again, for what we're asking you to do is tell us which of these is the direction you'd like us to go, and then within that, we can start rendering out and designing a budget around which of these three events makes most sense.
So you're needing us to narrow it down to one?
Yeah, if you could, yes.
Today, right now.
Well, it would be ideal, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the question.
Go ahead.
When-
I actually like the Lego one.
Yeah, so do
I
I.
actually really like the Lego, and
Fine,
I make a motion that we go for the Lego one. And that we get a budget, and
I'll second that motion.
I approve it.
I approve it.
All in favor? Who's in favor?
Yeah, obviously.
She does that, she gets to do that for us.
I don't approve it. Who's in favor? I also like it.
A first and a second to go with the Lego option for an event. I'll work with the consultants on the specifics of that. We do have language in our contract we're working on to have conformity with the approved event from the city in terms of execution. But now we can take, since our first and second, we'll take roll call. So everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Did I hear 6 aye?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Great, and then, I think, again, timing-wise, I think we're fine. We have plenty of time to do this, and these audiences react very quickly. So I'm comfortable if you all are, in the next, I believe these meetings, the TAC meetings are every other week. They're not monthly, are they?
They're monthly.
Oh, they are monthly?
Oh, yeah, don't start.
Thursday.
Yeah, so it's up to you. I can either submit, we can do it via email. I can submit everything to you in the next 2 weeks, and you can circulate it, or we can wait until the next TAC meeting, whatever's most appropriate.
I'll work with the chair on that process.
Perfect.
So,
Can I-
on that note, Scott,
Yes, sir.
Daily States Committee has cases of Lego,
Awesome.
boxes, pallet full of them,
That's awesome.
that we could probably figure out how to use, as long as they don't get stolen.
Yeah.
Or pilfered or whatever. Tracy?
I think one of the things on the Lego, because Legos is usually an indoor competition, it's because you're building, it's windy. I'm thinking of the weather, if it's, in the time frame, maybe something that's tall, that's a real good competition, and just children's things that we did for, on Danish Days for outside for kids in the park, something more like that.
I don't know, I'd like to see it all over. I'd like to
Okay.
have sections of the town. It's
Yeah.
not just one area.
Yeah, maybe blobs of them,
Yeah,
because, and again, we
let's
can put
let
up
the whole
a,
city share in this.
I hate to,
Yeah.
I mean, drive people over to the Memorial Hall, I'm not sure that's, but you come up with the ideas and we'll
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah, we can share a couple of different options, and again, we'll present a budget that makes sense for, you know, and option A, B, and C within that. So now that our team is focused on this one thing, then it's easier for us to start to pull that together. The one thing I'll say, you know, we're inspired by, like, the city of San Francisco right now, if you're familiar with it or not. They, for Lunar New Year, they have the animals all over the city. They're literally spread out. I mean, the city's only 49 square miles, but they're spread out all over the city, and it's amazing. People come from all over to see, like, the tiger and get their picture taken, and the monkey and the rat, and the, you know, and they hired in San Francisco. They hired a local artist to do each one of these, and then Stephanie Munson from the Float Builders actually made them so they look like floats. But so the idea is similar to that. It's kind of a riff off what's happening there.
So when we talk about date,
If it's okay with you, let's us come up with some ideas and start working with some of the folks to get their availability, so then we come through with a complete package rather than try. But I know when we last talked, you guys were pretty sure that you wanted something around the same time that the stomp had historically happened.
I can't remember when that was.
That stop was in the summer.
Or was it?
Well,
No,
the
it
stomp
was
is,
Taste
the
of
stomp
Solving.
is during
Taste of
October,
No,
during,
Taste of Solving.
Taste of
Taste of
Solving. I
Solving.
apologize, I misspoke.
and that was always in March.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
misspoke.
So
I
that didn't
apologize.
give you a lot of time,
No,
Okay, that's,
but that is the
Yep.
end of Q1.
it's
Yep.
gonna take you at least 60 days to get it going, huh?
45, we should be fine.
Or
Yeah.
So,
you could have it around April then, maybe.
We'll try and do, I mean, we'll work through the chair and the city manager to see if it makes sense to do it in March, or if it makes sense to push it into April. From a committee standpoint, this committee asked for 2 events, one in Q1, one in Q2, so technically Q1's ends at the end of March, but you also have the flexibility to overrule yourselves.
Well, you go into April, you're gonna get into spring break, and you're
Correct.
gonna get into Easter and all
Mhm.
that, so I would recommend, I hope to see you can do it, if you could do it in March.
Yeah, that's our plan, and that's why we wanted to bring these to you today, because we have time to pull the levers to get into a position where we can pull
You're
something
not gonna
off.
do the Taste of Solvang,
It wasn't our intention to do that as one of
Okay.
the 3 events that we sort of landed on.
yeah, it's sort of the Viking Fest, is it?
Yeah, that was a shift on that.
okay. Yeah, something new. Might attract a new market.
I like new. I like old too, but I like new.
Well, it's nice to reach out and attract a new market,
Correct.
okay?
okay. Any other questions from the committee? Comments? Public comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Captain Marvel team.
Re-excuse?
No.
Thank you very much.
Just
you.
nice.
Thank you.
You can fly home.
Pardon?
You can fly home now.
So that was agenda item number 4.
Correct. So now we'll go to agenda item number 5. I can read it into the record. It's to discuss revenue generating options, including sales tax increase, transient occupancy tax increase, or formation of business improvement district to support infrastructure and downtown beautification. So I'll start with a report. I'll just tell you that I also have for this item and the next item, I have our city attorney on standby in case we have any procedural questions. But I'll start with just an overview in your packet. It's on page, doesn't have a page.
looks like page 1.
Page 1 of that report. But there is a report on this. If you would flip to it, and we can also maybe put this on, put the report on the screen. As you know, the city is currently engaging in the next 2-year financial plan development. What the financial plan sets is priorities and programs that the city will be engaging in as city government over the next 2 years. So that includes all of our operating programs, which also includes marketing with it, as well as all of our capital improvement program. So capital improvement program includes all of the maintenance of roads, sidewalks, parks, and all that beautification, all that comes through that budget process. So the city council has just kicked off that process. They will be holding a goal-setting session on February 26th at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's a Saturday. And as part of that discussion, we came up some conversation about where Solvang is in terms of its revenue production. So just to give you an overall overview of the needs and the buckets and how the city operates, there's three major operating funds. One is the general fund, which funds all of it's generated, 50% of that is generated from the transient occupancy tax, another 16 from sales tax, and then 16 from property tax. The rest is fees and franchise fees and other miscellaneous sources. So the general fund funds all of our operations, all of our programs, the law enforcement services, recreation programs, just administration for the city, and marketing services as well. And then we have the water and wastewater, which are major operating funds that provide critical infrastructure for the city. So we as the city provide all of the water to our residents and treat all of the sewer for our residents. And that is paid for by the charges for those services. So our general fund is in pretty good shape. Our revenues do meet our ongoing expenditures. But if we look at our 10-year CIP program, the capital improvement program, if we did all the projects that are on the wish list, so to speak, and are important for the city, we would actually exhaust all of our reserves. The water and wastewater funds, unfortunately, are not balanced. The wastewater is currently in a negative position, which means we are completely out of money. We are in the process of doing a rate study right now. There will be a workshop on February 12th at 10 a.m. as well at the Veterans Hall. And essentially, the process is to study the rates that we need in order to pay for ongoing operations and the infrastructure within those systems going forward. So that will go through Proposition 218, which will be put out and notice to all of the customers, and eventually would need to be approved and adopted by City Council. So that's kind of an overview where we are financially as a city, and as part of that process, we started a conversation with City Council. There was comment from council members to have this committee provide some comment in terms of revenue options that are still available to the city that some other jurisdictions, especially tourist jurisdictions, take advantage of that we don't currently have. So if I scroll down a little bit here, this chart is a good chart to look at. It shows on the right the distribution of where all revenue comes from as an average for all cities in the state of California. So you will see that an average city, which obviously a lot of those cities may be more of a bedroom community, receive primarily their revenue funds from property tax, followed by sales tax, and then TOT. If you look at the city of Solvang on the left, you will see that transient occupancy tax is funds 50%, which is on the very high end, followed by sales tax and property tax, which are actually equal at 16%.
How come property tax is so little? Is it the value of the houses, or we just don't have that many?
We just don't have that many. We also gave up a small portion of property tax to have the
Fire department.
To be directly through the county.
It was cheaper when I did it.
But yes, there's just proportion of what we get from TOT. We obviously serve a lot of tourists, so our population expands, so we have a different dynamic here. But it must be said that we are...
Oh, I was wondering if you have data on general fund revenues per capita for Solvang versus the average California city, like beyond just the breakdown of it. But
can you repeat that question?
Yeah, what?
What general fund revenues are per capita per resident versus the average California city?
I can definitely add that data, yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
So if I go to the next page, I think this is a really interesting chart.
Yeah.
It shows the reliance of the city on sales tax versus the TOT. And you will see that our TOT is currently set at 12%, and we are the third most dependent city in the state of California on TOT as a proportion. So the two jurisdictions that are above us are the Mammoth Lakes and Yountville.
And what?
Yountville? Yeah, if I'm saying that correctly, Yountville?
Sure.
Yeah, where's that?
Where's that?
Great restaurants and great wines.
Where's that?
I believe
The
it's
bottom.
at
Napa Valley.
It's in Napa, the
It's where the
bottom.
French Laundry is.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
All right.
Oh,
It's at the bottom, is this, where's?
It's at the bottom of this page right here.
Page 4 on the next page.
But it looks
Oh,
like,
okay.
Zena, that everyone that is reliable, that has reliance on TOT, has a low housing population, and it's a tourist.
Right,
In the same boat with,
And low, I should say, low population.
right. It's small jurisdictions that are tourist.
Because, you know, when you look at these ones that are here, they're all in the $5,000, $5,000 and $6,000 population, like Solheim.
Correct.
So they do have to rely on TOT, because
That's the economy.
the economy.
But we definitely can, so as we look through this presentation, I'll just give you some comparisons for where we are in terms of rates for both TOT and sales tax. So if you look at the page of, bottom of page 3 for this report, that's on the screen, there's a chart that shows what would an increase of 1%, 0.5%, equal to in terms of revenue to the city. So as I mentioned, even though majority of our revenue comes from TOT, that's about $4 million, we already charge 12%. So obviously to make a dent, it's 1% is a much smaller increment of that sales price. So a 1% increase in TOT would only get us about $375,000. Dividing that by 2, 0.5% would get us to about $187,000 in additional revenue from that source. The sales tax, our shoppers in Solheim pay 7.75%. 7.25% of that is the state, and 0.5% of that is Measure A. So Measure A is the local county transportation tax. So for example, one of the projects that Solheim benefited from that recently was the Alisol Road repavement project. We don't have any local sales tax, which a jurisdiction can have. You can have either a general sales tax addition, which is just can be used for anything within general fund, or you can have a specific sales tax, which is geared towards specific improvements. So you could say, tourism downtown, infrastructure, as long as there's any specificity, that's a special sales tax. So a sales tax increase of 1%, which right now we get 1% of the 7.25 that goes to the state, generates about $1.4 million. Actually, last year it did even better, it got us $1.6 million. So if there was an increase of sales tax, which would have to be approved by the voters, would have to go on a ballot, the city could be generating an additional $1.4 million from 1% increase, or about $700,000 from a 0.5% increase.
but a TOT tax has to go before the voters as well, both taxes.
Both
Yeah,
taxes
okay.
have to go to the voters. So the general sales tax can go on a general election, and actually the one that's coming up is a general election in November of 2022. So the only ballot that could go on that would be a general sales tax. TOT and special sales tax have to be on a special election, which are typically in the off years. If there is any other jurisdiction that has a measure, then that can be consolidated with the county, and that would cut the city cost down as compared to the city just calling special tax collection, just paying for the entire dollar amount.
And what is that amount, roughly?
So to put a ballot, just the cost to the county itself for to put a ballot on this upcoming election in November is about less than $10,000, so they quoted about $7,000. Obviously, there's some additional cost from our city attorney would need to be involved and write arguments pro and against. We would probably need to do some outreach, but the flat amount for the county would be thus far quoted at $7,000.
And when they did this in Lompoc, it brought like $3.5 million to the general fund, did it not?
I don't know.
Okay.
What, a sales tax increase, Tracy?
Yeah, they.
1%?
Yeah, they did a 1%, yes, and I believe that was what Janella had told me. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the sales tax is obviously the derivative of the sales that happen in the jurisdiction. So I'll have a couple of slides on that too. But first I want to look at these figures which show the sales tax rates in Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County, and Ventura counties as a comparison. So you will see that in these three counties, Oxnard is the highest at 9.25. They have a lot of car dealerships and other things. And generally speaking, and Carpentry is the highest in Santa Barbara County at 9%. Carpentry is also does attract a very good amount of tourism just because of their coastal destination. But you will see there's some jurisdictions that are at 7.75, and our county of Santa Barbara is the only county that has the 0.5% add-on. So Ventura County and San Luis Obispo counties do not. It is typical for jurisdictions to have a local sales tax. It can be passed with a sunset date, so it doesn't have to be indefinite. That's an option. So you could say that it could be a measure for, a 10-year sales tax to see how that benefits the community. And the average tax rate through all cities in California as of the 2015 statistics was 8.5%.
Does the TOT have a sunset available too?
So the TOT, if we scroll down a little bit, we looked at the TOT within our county. And obviously, cities that are more bedroom communities like Lompoc and Santa Maria are at a lower rate of 10%. We are at the same rate, 12%, as our surrounding neighborhoods, which is Buellton and the county of Santa Barbara itself. Goleta and Quinceria are also at 12%. And then down below you can see some comparisons that target tourism destinations. And there we have the statistics for the population of the city as well as the rate. So if you look at Avalon Island, their tax is 12% with a population of 3,600, sales tax is at 10%. Other good comparison is Carmel by the Sea. They're at 10% TOT, but a higher sales tax rate. Essentially, the highest jurisdictions out of these destinations are Los Angeles and San Francisco. Those are your really large jurisdictions of 14%. And then our comparisons from the reliance on TOT are Mammoth Lakes and Yountville, which are 13%. So they're just 1% higher than us.
And the same sales tax.
Yes, and the same sales tax. Although this analysis doesn't include if that 0.5% addition is local for that city or for the county.
I think what you have to take into consideration on the TOT, ours is at 12%, but on top of that, that we have what we call a BID, which is $3 a night per occupied room. So they're paying the the 12%, and then they're adding another $3 a night onto that. And I think being a retired hotelier, I find that it doesn't sit well with the clients.
Really?
Yes, I should say, as they're checking out, you know, they're seeing all these different taxes, you know.
Yeah, but they see it, you go to Vegas and Frisco,
Oh, yeah, but
they
you go to
see them
Vegas.
and they,
Oh, I
and
was
they're
in
checking
Seattle,
out,
and
but,
Seattle's got like, they even got their Seahawks stadium
right, right.
on there.
But I see getting a TOT tax
But we're a
passed.
small community, and I just think that increasing the TOT tax, and with the, if we didn't have the BID on there, then I'd say go for
So
it.
you think a sales tax increase?
I think that's what I would.
But see, that, the locals are gonna say, that's out of our pocket. The TOT is out of a tourist pocket, which that's more palatable to them
Well,
than a
if
local
you raise
saying,
the-
I gotta raise my taxes by a
So if you
percent.
raise the TOT to 13%, we'd be the highest in Santa Barbara County.
And they'll be right behind us.
And then if you take that, the county of Santa Barbara is at 12%. So included in that 12% would be Santa Ynez and Los Olivos.
Right.
And
You
any
will-
of the unincorporated areas. So if people were gonna stay at the Fest Parkers, they're gonna pay 12%. They come to Sylvan.
Yeah, they're also gonna pay $50 more a
That's just the
room
point.
than our average. But I think it's more palatable, easier to sell a TOT than it
Than it is
is
sales
a sales tax.
But we're the lowest in sales tax. Look at us compared to, our sales tax is
Yeah.
1% less than Lompoc.
In Santa Barbara, or half, three quarters in
I
Santa
bought a
Barbara.
car in Lompoc, and she
Oh.
did the sales tax, and she said, oh my God, you're gonna save some money. And said, I'm glad you don't live in Lompoc, because you're gonna save money. You know?
But I think it changed the budget of Lompoc is what it did. It really changed how the city operated with the budget of raising the sales tax it has. And it's increased their budget, their general budget.
That's why I'm for increasing the sales tax.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually in favor of doing both, and I'll say it just like this. We have to take care of, and it's not we, it's the community should be taking care of their own infrastructure. And at some point, it's just like we all need car maintenance, we need maintenance. Our sewer needs major maintenance, and we know that. And the water treatment plant needs major maintenance to it.
Well,
And our hotels use it, so I think that allows that money to come from there. But I think the community has to be sold on a sales tax also
right.
to increase the budget and, you know, make things happen for our community. And I think we all know that at some point, you're gonna have to pay something.
Right, well, I'm all for raising the sales tax, and if this committee wants to make a recommendation to the city council to raise the
Yeah, well-
TOT, I support that also.
What are we looking for here, a recommendation?
Yeah, that's what I think.
So you're looking, yeah, for just general comment, there is no
Right.
action
Right.
needed. We're just looking for your general
Okay.
comments and thoughts.
You have on here a business improvement district tax.
Yes, so.
Does anybody want to discuss that?
We
Yeah,
certainly.
I think we should.
Okay, so let me just show you couple more slides here, the data points on sales tax. This analysis was presented as part of the general plan update. As you know, we're working on adding an economic development element to this general plan update. So
Do we have that?
No,
Okay, all right.
It's actually posted on plansolving.com as
Sorry.
part of the alternatives report.
I can still see that one.
So this data was put together based on cell phone data that tracks where people are coming from, what their activity is. It can show us how long people stay where. So as part of the general plan update, there is an economist on that team that has performed an analysis for us in terms of the number of tourists and where, you know, what the numbers are for different jurisdictions. So this slide here shows the number of visitors to Santa Barbara County and these jurisdictions that are surrounding Solvang per year. So you can see that when I first joined the city of Solvang, there was a number being circulated that we had about 1.5 million visitors a year. I was glad to see that this data pretty much well supported that finding. So you will see that the Santa Barbara County has close to 19,000 visitors to it. Solving in a pre-COVID year received about 1.5 visitors, and then 1.6 in 319 through 220. Compared to, I'll just go over the 2019 numbers. Santa Ynez was 1.4, which is just a little bit below zoning. Buellton, 1.6. That would probably count the numbers of folks that stop in Buellton off of Highway 101. And Los Olivos is at 303.
How did they get this count? I'm sorry, did you say that?
It's based off of cell phone data that
Okay.
we purchased that tracks where people are coming from, where they go, all of their travel pattern.
I can't believe that Santa Ynez had that many tourists.
That's a casino,
Pardon?
a casino.
Oh.
That's gotta be what it is. I was thinking the same thing, what
Oh
the
my
heck
God.
do all those people?
Casino.
And then
That
you'll,
is exactly it.
so, and then the phone's going, so it's a phone going by a certain area.
Yeah, so if it's like that, can it include the same person
Yeah.
in both accounts then? So it's like,
It can, so we're actually doing some follow-up analysis now to where we were able to get some more data from them that compares the traveler that's visiting multiple locations. And so that would show us how long the visitor stays in Solvang versus going out to Santa Ynez or Buellton.
And Los Olivos doesn't have any phone connections, so they got zero, you know.
That would be-
Anyways,
So we'll continue to work on that, but these are the first findings which were consistent with our at least understanding of how many visitors we do have on an annual basis. Then I wanna, go ahead.
So to go way, way back, how was the water and wastewater funds funded? That is from the general fund?
No, the water and wastewater are funded by the charges that the consumer pays. So that's your water bill and your sewer bill.
what do they call it, a,
Enterprise fund.
enterprise fund?
So
That
their
makes it own.
charging is not making for the maintenance to keep it?
It's for the maintenance to keep it. So for
Okay.
example, if there was an upgrade to water lines that are needed, or an upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant, which is required by new state regulations in terms of compliance, all of that would be funded by rates.
So that doesn't have to do if they were to increase TOT or sales tax, that's completely separate.
That's separate.
And we can, to straighten it out, if we get 3/4 of the vote, or 2/3 of the vote, we can say that goes to tourism only.
Right.
But we need 2/3 of the vote. And that goes with sales tax. I know the TOT can go like that, because we tried to do that when we raised it the last time to 12%. We couldn't get the vote, but if we can convince enough people, and you get 2/3 of it, we can get it directly to marketing and tourism marketing. Otherwise, it goes into the general fund, and it's just a wink and a nod that because we worked hard to get it up, and because we wanted for the marketing of Solvang, but we just couldn't get the votes, so it just became
And just a reminder again that the election that's coming up is a general election.
So that's no TOT.
Special election would be about a year after that. Unless the city of Solvang wanted to call its own March election.
do we have an idea of how much needs to be raised for downtown beautification, for example?
Well, it depends on what was included in that. For example,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
did a, top-notch project for, creating a European-like plaza for Copenhagen, our rough estimate right now is about $3 million for that project.
That would be keeping Copenhagen,
That would be keeping it closed and completely,
doing a true promenade,
correct.
getting rid of the curbs and everything.
But is that other parts of Solvang too, the west side and down right at Alisal, is that all of Solvang, or is that just Copenhagen, it's $3 million?
That's the top product, Copenhagen. You could do a project to make it, level street, but keep old sidewalks and whatnot for about $1 million.
it has nothing to do with the west end of Solvang.
No, I'm looking at the whole town and
Right.
not just what
So we
Copenhagen
would
is.
need, right, I'm just giving that as
Right, right.
example as far as
Yeah, I
how
think
far we plan to
Copenhagen
go.
would at least take $3 million to really do that properly, all of Copenhagen. You know, to really make it a true promenade, like if you've been to one like the one in Los Angeles and Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
That's another story. We're just trying to figure out if we need to, what we need to tell these people on 5 right now, right?
Right, we're right about on. Yes. So, if I could once again show the next slide. So this is once again an analysis done for the purpose of the general plan update and the economic element. And what this shows is by type of retail, where the spending is coming from. So this on the far right shows the total spending that's estimated for the city of Solvang. That's the total sales generated. Out of that, we get 1%. That's your 1.6 that we got in the past year. Household spending is estimated at 62 million versus the visitor spending is estimated at 93. There's a little bit of spending going on by commuters passing by, and there's additional spending from business to business. So you will see that, you know, I think the comparative figures are really who is going to pay it. You will see that the visitors will pay significantly more than the local households within this comparison. So
Yeah, this is sales tax.
this is sales
Okay,
tax.
right.
So this is your sales within the city Solvang subject to our sales tax throughout the year.
So roughly 50%
I think this
more.
gives just a little bit of indication of where the burden will lie. It's
Yeah.
not completely scientific, it doesn't account for all of the data of when Solvang residents leave town and come back. It's basically based on the income levels of the residents of Solvang, which you have that data, and then the purchasing power, and it's just a model that creates this relative ratio.
So, I'm finding online, it looks like Solvang has 2,380 households. Is that, do you think, the correct number, somewhere around there?
Sounds about right, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to come up with like how much it would affect each household, the increases, so.
Right. Yeah, and that's great analysis, and there's a lot of that information included in the alternatives report and the existing conditions report, which is on www.plansolving.com. That's the kind of baseline we've been working on for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, so now turning to tourism business improvement formation. And if we have procedural questions, I would be happy to get our city attorney online if he's more familiar with this process. But essentially, a business improvement district can be formed. It can be formed based on a tax levy on properties within specific jurisdiction, for example. So it could be done on every property within the TIBID, which would probably be a natural one for Solvang. And then that's just a tax levy that's applied to the tax bill, and it's paid through your property taxes, or those parcel owners' property taxes. Another way of doing it is by type of business. So there would be a fee placed on specific businesses within specific jurisdiction. That can become a little bit more difficult from an administrative perspective, so it's a less recommended venue. Obviously, how much would be generated would depend on the scope and the desire of what would be funded with this money. Typically, well, especially if you went with the property tax in both approaches, the activity that's generated or what you're paying for with this money would have to benefit the parcel. So, for example, you know, if you had a property tax assessed on properties within the TIBID, within downtown, you would have projects that would qualify and would have some language around it. It would say is for downtown beautification, could include infrastructure. It can also include operations, so it could include, for example, additional street cleanings, trash pickup, any of those things that would benefit that community in those parcels.
The first one you said boundaries, when you said the T bid.
Sorry,
The TOT.
TRC is what I was.
Okay, the TRC, okay, thank you.
So is there,
That clarifies it to me.
is there currently, you said a $3 a night fee?
For the BID.
for the
Every
VIP?
hotel in the valley, including Los Alamos, the first night is $3, right? They don't pay the second night, it's just a
When you check
one
out
night.
your photos, got your room
$3,
rate,
yep.
your sales, I mean, your
But it-
TOT, and then your BID.
And there, that goes to
To the Visit
to
SYV.
the Cinezville.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
pass
So
through,
that's
we
the
don't
assessment.
receive
Okay.
anything in
We
Solvay.
don't receive
And
anything.
just so you know, we produce 49 to 50% of
I
that
heard it's
budget.
close to 60.
Closer to 60%.
60, okay.
60.
60% of all the hotel
Yeah.
rooms
I
are
don't know,
from
how much
Solvay.
money is that, do you know? That's Solvay, good, how much does Solvay, the city of Solvay collect from the BID tax that goes to Visit Santa Ynez Valley, do you know?
I
What's the
want to
BID?
say about 400,000, it's included in
what I was
our
thinking.
budget.
How much total or how much,
Four and 500,000 a year.
how much total or how much Solvay gives to that budget?
So that's what Solvay gets.
Right, okay,
And then
that's,
they get it from Santa Ynez,
Right, right.
everybody else.
right,
Right, but-
Buellton's a big
right,
contributor
right,
too.
right. No, I was just,
but I think the question was exactly how much do we give to, Visit SYV, the total per year?
How much do we give them?
Yeah, I think,
About between 400,000 and 500,000.
yeah.
right, but I think we were just looking for the exact number from Zena, what that was.
It was about 400 before with the $2.5,
Uh-huh.
so it will go up. And so the TBID is a tourism business improvement district, which includes Solvang, Buellton, and something else
Okay.
around
So
there.
that's
And
really
Los
the tourism
Alamos.
improvement. Okay.
And they use that to market the entire valley.
Yep.
So what they're marketing is the destination.
Yep, for the valley. So then this, you're acknowledging that this would be an actual business improvement district,
For Solvang.
so, for Solvay,
Oh, it
yes.
would go on our property tax
Yep, okay.
for people that.
So, right, so the process for that establishment of something like that would be, it's actually city council initiated. If it was proposed to be, for example, on property owners within downtown, everybody would get a notice, and then it's a protest ballot, basically. If majority does not protest, then the city council can approve it and assess it.
Do you have any data on that for, just like you have for the TOT, do you have any data on that for the state and for,
I do not at this point, no, I have
Okay.
not done the research.
We're just discussing this.
It's very common, California is the #1 state that's, has a lot of these business improvement districts.
Right.
And it's very common for, more touristy destinations. Santa Barbara has 2 of them, that's one of the examples I had. Pismo has one.
Carmel has 2, I know, too.
Yeah.
right,
Gina, are we, sorry. We else go? Is this just a recommendation
It's a recommendation
to the
to
council?
the city council, correct?
Okay. For the business improvement?
Do we
I think
need a
we just
motion
got-
to make a recommendation, correct?
Yeah.
It would make it clear if you have any support for any of those
As
options.
Business owners, do you feel that that's you need?
That we need?
Yeah. an
More
improvement
money?
district?
No, we need more money to spend on advertising. That's the goal of the, I see, of the TAC.
Marketing.
Marketing, yeah, and I see, like I've said, I think it's more palatable
And be
to the
dumped.
locals to get them to vote for a TOT rather than a sales tax. But I could be wrong. I mean, maybe people are willing to, but most taxes are not very popular.
Especially now.
If you're taxing yourself. Now, if we're voting to tax somebody else, like tourism, I think it's a little easier push.
You know, with the economy going this way, it's just hard to palate, like you said.
And I think the people of Solvay maybe I'm wrong, have a better understanding of the importance of our money, since many things have transpired over the last 2 years. I think they understand that tourism is is a large driving force and mechanism in solving. So, I mean, my opinion is to make a recommendation that we do a TOT, but I'm just one person on the board here.
I mean, can we say to look for the city to explore both? I mean, if we feel that
Absolutely.
way, I think there should be
That's
more
what I would
input
say.
from business owners and locals and all that, so.
So,
Nothing wrong with that.
and on the BID, there's a lot of landlords that don't live here, that don't understand, except they get a check in the mail.
And that their fees went up.
And to put a tax on their property, wouldn't, there'd be a lot, I think we get a lot of protest on that, I don't know, maybe.
Well, the only thing is, they will pass it on.
Right.
The property owner, they'll
Right.
pass it
Yeah,
on.
they'll pass it
Of
on.
course, yeah.
They're not gonna just eat it, they're gonna
No.
pass it on. And so the rates for everyone, and then you're gonna potentially have issues with stores closing or just unable to, or raise whatever their business stuff.
So,
I'd have to raise my chocolate if that was passed on.
Right, right, right.
We're
So
a
that
village that really depends on tourism. And one of the things, if we don't continue to do beautification programs, that's not gonna keep our tourism going. So I really think that we have to do something and recommend to the city that we have to get some money in here by raising the sales tax and the bed tax.
oh, they just need to clean the
Because
city
we've
more.
got to keep the city looking good.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the other thing too, is you can say we support increases, but then, or what are they putting that towards? So if we were to increase something, does that come with marketing, beautification, you know, what would be those?
The selling
What?
points.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's.
Well, we're just recommending.
Right,
Yeah.
We'll
right,
be
right,
the big-
yeah.
we'll
We were on
let
the
them
last
move the
committee
big
that did
heavy-
it, and,
They
you know,
can
we
move all
pushed
the
it.
heavy stuff, the stones, they can move the stones.
So,
So
Yes.
I think also important to take some public comment on this before you finalize the discussion.
Sorry, Mark.
sure.
The one comment I'd like to make, or I'd like to ask you the question of city manager. How long does it take to put together the vote to increase either the TOT or the sales tax? I mean, personally, I can't speak for the council, but personally, those are both good ideas. But when do we have to say go, and you have enough time, and the attorney has enough time to get everything onto the ballot so that we can get it done by November? And I think what I heard you say is TOT can't even be voted on until
Right.
next
Yeah.
year.
Correct, so this is a general election coming up in November, so we could only have a general sales tax option on that, and we have our city attorney with us here now today. The deadlines for the election of November 2022 for all the ballot measures are in the summertime, so kind of all the process starts in June. Obviously, we would need to have some work between us to get there, but if you were to, or if the city council was to direct us to move in that direction, we have enough time to get a ballot measure for a general sales tax on the upcoming election.
If we made it in the next city council meeting, or this month, or
I would say in February would be
Okay.
desirable.
at least in the next 2 meetings. Okay.
Correct.
That, I think that needs to be understood by everybody, and that has to be made into the presentation, or the recommendation to the council, that we need to do it that quickly in order for it to become effective immediately, or as soon as possible.
Thank you for the comment. Dave, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you just confirm that the TOT would have to wait till special election?
The TOT actually, because it's a general tax as well, could be done at a regular, the general municipal election, but it has to be done at the same election as where council members are up for election. So it has to be basically November of an even numbered year.
Okay, so it would be this election as well.
Good.
So we can do, Dave, we can do both then. We can go for both.
You could do
TOT and
both.
sales.
Strategically, putting two separate tax measures on the same ballot has a tendency in other cities that I've represented to cause defeat for both of them. So it becomes a little bit of a gamesmanship as to which one is more important and more likely to pass before you put both of them on there. But I have had cities put as many as 3 tax measures on the same ballot.
Were they successful?
In that particular city, they were. It was 3 separate types of taxes. One was a transient occupancy, another was a sales tax, and the third one was a utility users tax. Those are not as common as they used to be, but there are some cities that still rely heavily on taxes that are applied to the various utilities that are furnished by the city.
Ooh, there's another tax.
Thank you.
Since we have a little time, is it possible to get a output that looks like this around the state and, you know, to help, have your staff help you do this, get a research on what a T-bit looks like throughout the different areas, so.
Business Improvement District?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think we have 90 days, I think I missed it, but I'm sure it's either 90 or 120 days before the ballot goes out, right? We have to have it ready.
Dave, what's the timeline? Well, the Business Improvement District would not need to be on an election. That would be a local process.
And then we could maybe get a survey out. I think we really need to have a survey done, and I think maybe,
For what?
I think I'd like, I mean, just as representing the business district, I would like to have a survey done to the business district, how they would feel about it. I mean, I just would like to.
A BID?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, yeah, for both, I think, yeah, I think you do need to have it into the hotels, how they feel about it. I think there's.
Oh, a TOT then?
There's 17 hotels on the BID, and then to the businesses. I think we should do 2 separate surveys to them to see what they think. I mean, I think it's important to hear their voices too, but we also know where we need funding.
Right. And for the tax measures, I would recommend probably doing a poll, which we have a little bit of time, not a lot to do.
Right.
But that would be to poll the residents and all of the voters of the church.
And if I could just chime in on the differentiation between the BID and the tax measures. The tax measures, if they're a general tax, can go into basically the general fund. They don't have the same kind of restrictions. If you set up a business improvement district, because it's a form of assessment district, there has to be some linkage between the money that is collected and the use of the funds to benefit the people from whom it's collected. So if you set one up as a business improvement district that only involves lodging properties, that money would have to be used for the substantial benefit for the lodging properties. If there's side benefits or tangential benefits that are minimal to the rest of the community, that's okay, but the primary benefit has to be to the people who are paying the assessments.
On a sales tax, if we were to, can we focus that too if we were to get 2/3 of the vote? Or is that going to the general?
You certainly can set it up as a special tax. I tend to recommend against that because it does require the 2/3 vote. So if you want a sales tax, some cities in the past have set up advisory measures as a second measure on the same ballot, saying if the sales tax measure passes, would the public like it to be spent for X? It's not binding in that situation, but it gives some indication of where the money might be spent. But if it is dedicated to a specific purpose, it's going to be considered a special tax and it will require a 2/3 vote.
So how can we do it for advertising, promoting Solvang? How can we, I mean, so a BID on the hotels, for instance, promoting Solvang wouldn't fall under the heading of helping them? You would have to be...
Yes, so to give you an example from the other city where I'm city attorney, Pismo Beach has a lodging business improvement district, and the only people who pay into the assessments are lodging properties. So they pay 1%, I think maybe 1.5% now total assessment on the room rate, basically. So the gross lodging revenues, they pay 1.5%, maybe as high as 2% now. I haven't looked at it recently, but that money goes specifically for promotion of the lodging properties. It goes also for physical improvements that benefit the lodging properties. But the touchstone is the benefit to the lodging properties. Now, the rest of the community does benefit from some of that, obviously, because if there are more what we call heads in beds at the hotels, that increases the TOT, and that is a general fund revenue.
Interesting.
Any additional questions? Comments?
Good.
It sounds like I'm hearing that there's general support to look into sales tax increase, TOT increase, and formation of business improvement district. Am I hearing this correctly?
I would have to say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing nods all across the board. Okay, and there's a preference, if you could also do nods on something that's specific for promotion of sewing and marketing, maybe downtown beautification as opposed to just general.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you for that feedback. There's no motion needed, but it was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody. All right, with that, we'll move to our last item, number 6, which is the discussion of marketing services, operating structure, and marketing scope of work for the benefit of the city of Baldwin, and prepare recommendations for the city council consideration. So this is what we've been having multiple discussions on, and most of the discussions were formulated around the scope of work and issuance of RFP for the marketing services going forward beyond the contract, which is currently being negotiated through the end of July of 2022. We've received a lot of, frankly, general comment from you on that RFP, but you never settled on any particular terms throughout those discussions. At some point, member Max Hunenberg had presented some thoughts that kind of expanded the discussion a little bit beyond and above the development of the RFP, specifically to looking at marketing structure overall. So with that, I have prepared a report which was brought to you that kind of talked about the different versions of structures that exist in for marketing, and they're used in different jurisdictions. One of those options was continuing with just directly contracting to a private consultant. Another discussion was looking at options such as, for example, SCDB, or working with a different nonprofit, which nonprofits don't have their own board that kind of has an oversight for that body. And the third option was just having marketing be under the umbrella of the city within city staff. So various these options have different strengths and weaknesses. We didn't really get into that discussion last time, but it is presented in your report. It's on page, I don't know if it applies, but there's a chart that talks about the marketing services alternatives, and you can definitely comment whether those are, or if you want, whether you agree with those different options. But I would say that or those strengths and weaknesses as they're outlined in the report, but I would say that generally speaking, when you contract as a city directly to a marketing firm, then your sort of the reach with the consultant is based on the terms of that contract. There's also potentially, there's likely to be less, if you open it to any contractor, there's likely to be less presence in the city. The way that the SCDB used to function, that's why we have city attorney here if you have any questions. The SCDB was actually formed back in the day on behalf of the city, so it was this relationship that's a little bit unusual to where the nonprofit ran the organization. Nonprofit appointed its own board members. It's a separate organization. So essentially the city contracted out to SCDB as the nonprofit. But the city also ratified the appointments of those board members. And then there's, of course, the option of just having a city employee, which is the most direct relationship from city council directly to staff and more local control. but it also comes with, obviously, city being fully responsible for that function. So those are the three options potential for discussion. You had recommended, well, Cheryl, you were not on the committee, we had Barry Prescott on the committee. Majority of the committee had recommended extension of contract with IDK or Cox and Marvel for an additional period of time through December 31st, 2021, in order to continue to work on the future of marketing, as I understand, and to 22, sorry. The recommendation was presented to City Council. Part of the staff recommendation was to align the process with a 2-year financial plan development instead of extending an additional 6 months and then revisiting the subject matter. So staff recommendation was, your recommendation was brought forward, and staff's recommendation was to go ahead and continue with RFP development. There is an RFP example included in your packet. The scope is very brief, and it's based on all of your general comments that you had made. So some of the options for you today are to discuss whether you want to, and what would the steps would be for you to recommend getting to the ultimate desired structure for marketing. Obviously, the alternatives that you could continue to recommend that the contract would be extended through December 31. There was no recommendations made by you for the scope of work through that period of time at the time you made the recommendation, or you could review the RFP and provide any additional comment and recommend issuance of that, in which case a new contract would be awarded for the period of the new 2-year financial plan. So that's where we are today. We are here to answer any questions, hear from you what you need in terms of determining the next steps. The City Council did not take action one way or another when this recommendation was brought to them, and had requested that a member of PAC, which I would probably suggest, unless you decide otherwise, the chair would be the spokesperson in bringing recommendations to the City Council at the next council meeting.
Question, how was, with the CVB established prior to, was that funding, was that a set amount? Was it based off TOT? How was the amount determined?
So the amount every year was determined based on, through the budget process, based on allocations. The SCDB would prepare a work program essentially with specific items. The budget would come in front of City Council, would be approved, and then the relationship between SCDB and the city was contractual under the contract terms.
What do you think, Cheryl?
I guess, I mean, I have a CVB background, so I'm very familiar with being funded by a city, also having an additional assessment that's put onto lodging. So I've seen it very different ways. I mean, I haven't been in Solvang or the area that long, so I guess what were the issues prior to, or why did the CVB not work out, or what would be the ideal situation different than what it was before?
Why did the SCV
That's another.
didn't work out? We had a new city council that wanted to, my view of what happened, we had a new city council and they didn't like the way things were run. I think they wanted to bring in outside people and have new ideas. They wanted Solvang 2.0, they wanted to change, they wanted Solvang 2.0. So we went from 1.0 to 2.0 and gets flush everything out of the city, good or bad, and start over. And maybe the SCVB had a flaw or two but that was the shape, the form works, in my opinion, and it worked well. I was on the board at one point and my wife was on, Ken, we've all been on it, participating
We've all been.
from local, and then, and having IDK / whoever come in has also enlightened us and opened my mind as to what could be done, but I still think we need feet on the ground, my perspective, feet on the ground in Solvang. When people need to come and visit with somebody, talk to somebody, we need somebody here that's focused on us. The SYVVA, they sort of help the hotels, brings, but not all, that's valley-wide. This needs to be Solvang concentric.
It's a coordination and good communication between that person, the director, and I think Tracy did a nice job on that. I think when you can communicate with the visit Cheyenne-as, when you can talk to the different chambers, and it's having that good communication so everything is coordinated, and I think it went really well. I think a couple of times it just got really busy for the SCVB, and they took on more than they should have probably. And when things kind of looked funny, you know, then people made accusations and it just got sideways. So if the SCVB or what we would think could be running, just stay in the lane of operating and communicating with everybody, and including the city. There should be someone from the city that is a liaison, coordinator person that could talk, or they somehow find a way so that everyone's communicating. So for example, there's a parade, that they talk to the city, they know how to do that, boots on the ground, take care of the coordination. It's just that kind of clear communication. It was going well. It did really well at one point.
I mean, so from given what's here, and I agree, I think you need people in market. So that would at least then eliminate the contract by private company, right? You're looking then either by a nonprofit or having someone under the city.
Right. I mean,
Agree
and
with that?
IDK does a good job at certain areas that
And they could still be agency on
you
record.
can still,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
hire them out
Yeah.
and farm certain things out that we, you know,
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
That's, and I've always thought it would work good.
I think IDK does a very good job. On the marketing, there's marketing pieces they do, but there's pieces we're missing. And I really believe an RFP should go out. We have a good team here. We have a very smart team to try to write an RFP. We've never made that opportunity through this group to write an RFP, and possibly working with Zena, and I'm gonna say one city person, because previously at times city people do come in to help one city council person to just get a perspective as a ad hoc committee. And I really do believe that is what we need, is to give the citizens and the city something to really financially look at the money, of how money is spent. I mean, you just don't give a trash contract, you don't give a lighting contract or a maintenance contract to anybody without an RFP. And I think was the position I was trying to take last time. It isn't that somebody's doing something totally wrong, it's we need to have an RFP for the good of the community and for accountability of just what happened last time. Because Tracy, I don't think the Conference and Visitors Bureau really did anything wrong. I mean, they didn't. I mean, that's just my opinion too. But I think we have to have total transparency on money at this point. It has to be totally transparent.
You know, as I see it right now, we have 4 organizations promoting Solvang. We have a marketing agency, and we have Visit Santa Ynez Valley, we have the Solvang Chamber, and then I think our Parks and Recreation do a little bit of that too.
Well, if you add chamber, then we got Built Chamber too.
Pardon me?
We have Built Chamber too, right?
Right. No, but I'm saying right in our community right now, we have 4 people marketing Solvang. So I think that definitely we need an organization that can coordinate this stuff so that we can hold people accountable. Like all organizations have measurements for success and responsibility to report. And I think that to have a local person in charge of marketing, like we have the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau, I think we should recommend that to the city council, in my opinion.
But Joe, just so you know, that entity is still sitting out there. The city is still paying for it. I mean, it takes $800 a year to keep a nonprofit open plus tax forms. So it's sitting there, stalled, out in space. So it could be very easily brought back, I think we've learned, haven't we?
So that's why I would like, Dave, if you can hear us, if you could give us a synopsis on where we are with SCVB status right now.
The SCVB is still a corporation in good standing. It's a nonprofit corporation. I think it was a public benefit corporation. Currently, as I understand it, has no assets. It has a couple officers who are currently listed with the Secretary of State as former council members. So there would need to be some work done to try to transfer that up, set up a new board of directors, and get it back into operations, so to speak. A corporation like that doesn't necessarily have to have significant assets to do the work, but there would be some staff work from the city if the council gave direction to do that, to work with the existing board of directors to try to get it back up and running, appoint a new board of directors subject to council ratification. And there may be some desire to modify the articles of incorporation to take the city council out of that process so that it is truly a separate entity from the city rather than the way it was set up many years ago.
How was that set up? I'm taken away from the city, you mean?
Yeah, so if you were to contract with a totally independent corporation, it would be like any other type of consultant, but having it with a nonprofit, there would be a little bit of additional oversight by the Attorney General's office because they do deal with nonprofits. Whereas if you were dealing with a for-profit entity, you might not have the same kind of level of oversight. If the city is interested in oversight specifically, having it as a separate city department or a city function as opposed to contracting with a corporation outside the city would probably be the easiest way to ensure that kind of oversight.
I have the articles of incorporation and the secretary filing right here, which I was going to give you on the next item. And that is the fact that Daniel Johnson and Ryan Toussaint are still, as he said, on there. And when you go back on the articles of the closing of it, and we've looked at it very closely, and on item number 7, it tells how to close it down correctly and properly, but the assets were never distributed correctly on the actual articles of incorporation. So I wanted to bring that. And then, so there's one for everybody there. And also there was a Friends organization that's on the back page, and that one is suspended at this time. That we had a Friends organization that was open with the CBD. So that one is still in limbo, and it has been suspended at this time, so. So I think, as we talk about it, I think there's just some quick paperwork exercises that should be cleaned up for ourselves that should have been done in 2020 when the new election happened, and we're going into 2022 now,
Well, these are all formalities that we can
I know,
take
but
care of,
they're formalities, but they're actually what hasn't been done.
Right.
On a
And
company that we're
I
talking
should
about.
point out to you that while they are legal formalities, the city doesn't have control over the corporation. So if, for example, the current board of directors said, no, we choose not to do that, the city doesn't really have an effective mechanism other than the provision in the Articles of Incorporation that it is supposed to ratify the board of directors. So if, for example, the two remaining officers of the SCVB put together a slate of directors that the city council did not ratify, then the question becomes, okay, how does that corporation continue to operate? Who is responsible for actually doing the paperwork that gets submitted? Who is responsible for filing the tax returns? And because it is a separate legal entity, the city can't just say, do this. That's going to be up to the board of directors and the officers of that corporation. So there would have to be a cooperative effort to make that happen. Now, if the officers appoints a new board of directors that is copacetic with the city and the officers resign and the board of directors appoints new officers that work with the city, then it is more of a formality situation. There's that cooperative. But you can't assume that a separate independent corporation is necessarily going to follow the direction of the city just because the city asks it to.
So in essence, the two gentlemen have control over that, pretty stout control over it. If they wish to make it difficult, they could make it difficult, but they are currently responsible for the filings, correct?
Correct. For better or worse, they are the officers. They are in control of that corporation.
Okay. So we have it over, they have over their heads are pending legal issues to get this closed down or moved on, or, and they need to know about that. They probably have no idea that they're still there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what communications have happened in that regard. I know that there's been some discussion of certain assets of the SCBB that were recovered by the city prior to my coming back as city attorney.
My question, Dave, to you is then, if they were city council people when they made these decisions, was it done legally within the Articles of Incorporation and in the, what was done, or it was taken away illegally and given to them? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and I'm reluctant to give you kind of an off-the-cuff legal answer to that for two reasons. One, I haven't researched the issue. Two, if I'm going to give that legal advice, I'm going to give it to the city council in closed session. I don't want to take a position that that the prior city council did anything correctly or incorrectly without significant review of it. And until this city council gives me direction to start digging into that, I don't have direction to do that.
Thank you. The reason I just brought it up was because it was still outstanding, and we talk about the CBB in this room all the time, and I just wanted to know who was responsible. So you've answered that question. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we want to explore bringing that back, right?
I like the word explore, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would,
I mean, it sounds like there's gotta be, so, I mean, our recommendation to city council then would be to explore bringing the nonprofit of the CBB back.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree, sorry.
But I don't think there's anything official.
The only thing I wanted to throw on the table is, Buellton has decided they have their conference and visitors bureau and their chamber as one entity. Santa Maria has done the same thing. How does that work? Does anybody know? Yeah, you would know.
It's working very well, but I'm going to say at this table right now, our Chamber of Commerce will never, and we talked about this as a board last week, we will not bid on the marketing aspect at all of what's happening with the Conference and Visitor Center. That's why we pulled it up. We had the discussion at a board meeting. We will never bid on it. We may bid on the what we want to say, the tourism, I'm missing the point, the visitor center, which is that they all run a visitor center and they run a second tourism marketing. Kathy runs 2 sets of books in Buellton, 2 sets of board members differently. So they are run, each one is run with separate books and separate board members.
She has 2 boards.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, and they have 2 sets of books, totally 2 sets of books. We would never, and I say that publicly because we've made that decision publicly, we will never bid on the tourism aspect or the marketing aspect of it. The only thing we wanted was a visitors center, because who takes care of the tourists? Supposedly the chamber does, and that always comes back, but at the same time, we pay a good group of people to take care of it. So that is, I want to make that very public, because there's been discussion why we, voted no or yes, like that, and we had this very big board discussion at our board meeting, And we wanted to publicly say, we will not, and we think there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't do it, but it does work, but you run two sets
So,
of
yeah,
books, you run two boards.
Essentially, it's two organizations.
Yeah, it's
Just
two
one head.
organizations.
Right.
Yeah.
One
So,
director.
Right.
but it's two organizations.
Yeah,
But
right.
Santa Barbara runs totally separate now. Santa Barbara runs a totally separate independent, but yes, they get $600,000 towards the tourism economic side of things. So there's an economic side of tourism and there's a tourism side of marketing. So there are two distinguishing, as you look at each where money goes.
Santa Barbara also, they do their BID.
They do a
So
separate.
So they don't have, they have, their, Santa Barbara Conference and Visitors Bureau is no longer called Santa Barbara Conference, it's called Visit Santa Barbara.
Right.
Because they took the BID over, so they're getting the BID and the TOT.
But their
Which would
south.
be a great idea for
Yeah.
us.
That's a lot of money.
And their South Coast Chamber runs their two visitor centers down there. Still runs the visitor center. Kathy doesn't run that out of Visit
Correct.
Santa Barbara, yeah.
Okay.
Boom.
Okay. What do you need from us?
So we need to take public comment first. Mayor Pro Tem.
Couple of comments. By just recommending that we reinstate the SCDB, we may be running into a whole bunch of issues. And I don't mean the legal stuff about the contract of it. I think what TAC is trying to suggest is that we need to have a local presence, maybe a local board, and I think as Tracy put it, subcontract out to people like IDK to handle certain events and things. Okay, so I would be hesitant to say, let's bring back the SCBB. I don't know that it has to go that way, and if you leave it at that, then there's a yes or no, and if it goes no, we start all over again. I think what I'd like to recommend personally, I cannot speak for the whole council now, you know that, is the recommendation is that we have a separate organization that has local people, boards, somebody that is responsible for, that, I'm not saying this very well. The expression he keeps using is boots on the ground. There's an RFP in the agenda. I hate this RFP. The reason I hate it, it's mostly legalese, and it's got 1/2 a page of scope, and there's no real scope to it. It just says, do marketing stuff. So what I think would be interesting to see is if we went out to an RFP, what if this organization said, here's what we think a marketing group should do. In other words, come up with a scope, put it into this RFP, and let's go see if somebody can come up with a better idea than we can. That would make some sense to me, but this RFP, I didn't care for at all and voted against it, because it doesn't say anything. Do you want it to run events? Do you want it to do this? Do you want it to have a local office? Do you want to have a local phone number? Do you want all of those things that you would want, that you've been discussing here, that the SCBB had at one point in time? When you say resurrect the SCBB, that's a legal construct. I think your recommendation should be a practical construct that says, here's what we want to do. Boots on the ground, local office, local representation, subcontract out for specialty items, things of that nature. But I think you're going to restrict yourself too much if you say, let's just bring back the SCBB.
Well, the FCB could be any,
It doesn't have to be the SCBB. What you're saying is you want that kind of an organization. How you get to it might be to resurrect that SCBB board, or that nonprofit, or you create a new one, or you hire somebody that is a nonprofit that can handle this for us, that's local.
Is there any additional public comment before we bring it back to the TAC? In person or online? Seeing none. TAC is your meeting and your recommendation is the body.
Any other questions or comments after that?
I would make a recommendation that we take 30 days and try to write a good RFP, looking at Pismo beaches, how it's done within the city, and get a copy of a few, and I think it'd be pretty easy with Cheryl's contacts in mind to get a copy, since I'm on a state board and national board for chambers, to get copies of contracts pretty easily, to look at them and try to write a good RFP based on what we know this committee wants, what council's looking for, and what we've heard, and then bring it back in 30 days or that, or maybe 60 days, and let it be voted on. It did not take that long to put out the RFP when we did the Solving Visitor Center. It was a 30-day turnaround.
It's a small little thing. Solving is one little unit that we have many aspects in this that we have to deal with. I just don't see how we can throw an RFP together. I'm still of the mind that we bring back the group and have a acting secretary or a manager of it and a board that tells, and then we'll work on an RFP and set it out. We social marketing here, events over here. That's my thought.
Well, are you like thinking like have the city hire like a marketing manager and then?
No, I think, well, no, get the board together and the board, like we did before. The board hires an executive secretary, manager, whatever we want to call it. That's.
But we wouldn't call it Sylvan Conference of Visitors.
Well, I would. It's already there. I mean, the entity is there. Why start a whole nother one, which costs lawyers and.
It's gonna be an entity of something.
I-
We call it boots on the ground entity.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, but then you're gonna start a whole nother, you gotta start a whole nother legal process, and that costs a lawyer a bunch. It's gonna, I think, it would cost more than the lawyer to take a look at this and get it back activated. And then we have a board, and then you hire a manager, an executive secretary that pulls together the ideas and the RFP.
Cheryl?
Again, that's my.
Cheryl, just, you've done this stuff.
Well, I was gonna say, it sounds like we need to find out if we can even switch the lights on, right? So I would recommend that we have asked city council to explore that, to see how easy that would be, right? At the same time, we can gather RFPs,
Yes.
happy to do that, and see exactly what kind of structure we want within a boots on the ground, a CVB, whatever you wanna call it. And I can provide those in the week, next week.
Okay.
So,
So,
does that require a special meeting, or do we just?
I email them,
You can't email it to everybody because we have
Yeah,
program.
but I can send it to
You can
you.
work with me. You
Yep.
can also appoint an ad hoc, I believe, just to work with me, a couple of you. And I just want to mention that I think the difference with boots on the ground, the formation of something like a CDD versus just a contract, it's a little bit different organizational structure. Just a contract comes from the city council, city manager contract versus contract to another board. You contract for specific scope that year, or however those terms are formed, but the oversight of that body legally comes from the board. So it's different types of boots on the ground.
Yeah, I think what Zena's saying is Pismo Beach has exactly what we have here. Your board is already here. If you did something like Pismo, you already have a board, in place. Where you don't have
Board, you mean the TAC?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly the same thing. We're already here. It's just how it's done in Pismo. Every city does it different, and I think we can get some metrics to show you that. And I think if we did a small, as you want to call, ad hoc committee, so not everybody wants to do it or has the time to do it, I'm happy to
Well,
get.
it would be no more than 2 of you. but
Right.
Yes, that could be an ad hoc committee that would form to work on RFP, that's what your recommendation is, and come back at the next
I like Cheryl to
meeting.
be on it though. No,
I'm
seriously.
happy to work with Tracy, yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing that your recommendation is to recommend to the city council that SCVB option or reinstating that, we're working through that, whatever the status is, be explored and finding out more about that option. And in the meantime, forming an ad hoc committee, which would be Cheryl and Tracy, to work on a scope for an RFP and come back at the next meeting. if I captured it correctly, if you would, to make it very clear, make it a motion, and then I assume the chair of the committee will communicate that at the next council meeting.
Unfortunately, I won't be in town on the 14th.
Okay, then you can appoint another speaker on behalf of the committee.
Anybody want to come forward?
Vice Chair will do it.
Okay,
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair will do it.
Perfect.
What am I gonna do? I gotta go up and present what we just spoke about here.
Your recommendation, correct.
But we need to make a motion.
Please make a motion.
I make a motion that we ask city council to explore what it means to bring back the CVB, turn the lights on. At the same time, ad hoc committee between myself and Tracy for scope of work, for having someone in market for marketing purposes.
I second.
Okay, we'll just call every member.
This will be done in writing, right?
Correct.
Good.
This will be done in writing. This will be in the minutes of Truth
Good, I just have it so I have it the next meeting.
And we'll have it for you at the next meeting. Tracy Beard,
Yes.
Alexander Grenier,
Yes.
Max Henberg,
Yeah.
Kim Jensen,
Yes.
John Martino,
Yes.
and Cheryl Schomburg.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Yeah, you too.
Item 7.
Item 7, Chair, is committee member comments. So this is an opportunity for you to make any comments relative to your scope. If you have any.
I don't have it.
I made all my comments.
I'm done. She's done.
All right.
Thank you. Next item is city staff comments. Just thank you for all your input today. Appreciate it, and no further comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, we adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn.
Taking that, Cheryl.
You're supposed to hammer.
Take.